Okay, so here's what's going on. All right. Hey, everybody. We're back. We're talking about Italian horror. So last on the free feed, we did an episode on Candyman, and that was Jackal finally showing me one of his favorite movies. And so I've repaid the favor. I am now showing Jackal one of my favorite movies, which is we are returning to probably my favorite Italian horror director, Lucio Fulci, his 1981 film The Beyond. Jackal, how do you feel after having watched The Beyond for the very first time?
So many eye stuff. Just so many things happening to eyes.
There's a lot of eye shit. Fulci likes his eye shit.
And unique eye damage, too. Like, it's not the traditional eye getting poked out, or even... There's we
do get that.
We get that, but we also get an eye being pushed out of its socket via the corner of the... It's an entirely unique way of showing the eye coming out of its socket that I haven't seen before. Of course, it was Lucio Fulci that did it.
We got a tarantula eating an eye. We got all sorts of shit. So last time we talked about a movie that had a lot of substance, a lot of a point it's trying to communicate. And this time we were talking about a movie that is almost entirely vibes. So like if you're coming here expecting a political reading of this movie, like we might conjure one out of this, but I don't think there's much.
Kind of doubt it. I'll be honest. I've been thinking since I've seen the movie, I've been trying to extrapolate. Okay, what political point could Fulci be making here, even unintentionally? I don't know. There's
a brief moment where a guy talks about a strike and some labor issues, but it's played in it's entirely in passing. And I don't think it's there for a reason. I think it's just
it's just there for exposition because someone needs to say something.
Which a lot of the dialogue in this is very very weird and stilted and whatever. Which is why a lot of people this movie has had a mixed reputation for a long time. It was despised when it came out by a lot of people, and actually Roger Ebert included this movie in his 2000 book of most hated movies.
I think that's not surprising. Did Ebert like this movie? Because I don't think he did.
No, he hated this movie. And the things he cited were that the dialogue was terrible and the plot made no sense. Which is what fans of the movie like me would say is like part of the vibe of the movie. And I think it wouldn't be the same movie without it.
You hadn't really given me a ton. I wasn't given a plot synopsis or a summary or pitch when I watched it. So I went in a little blind, but I did know not to expect something like Don't Torture a Duckling, the last Fulci movie that we had talked about last year. So I knew not to expect that kind of structure and more firmly in the seat of horror. Though I would say this will probably be a thing that we talk about. Is I don't really know where this movie sits genre-wise, because initially, while everything about it is reading, some kind of horror, I think it's kind of multiple horror subgenres at the same time. One of them being, Josiah, is this a Southern Gothic movie?
No, but but the Wikipedia says it is.
Yes, and initially when I was watching it with the beginning, I thought that was going to be a bigger deal. The setting was going to be a bigger deal in the movie, if not the commentary about the antebellum South, Reconstruction, post-Reconstruction, and none of that is like any of those things would have been talking points about the setting of Louisiana.
No.
legitimately think that Fulci just filmed this in Louisiana for money.
Probably, yeah, because the Louisiana Film Commission helped pay for this movie, so like I think it was like entirely that. One of the screenwriters, Sacchetti, has a quote where he says, "The hotel is an excuse, the characters are an excuse. What counted was the weaving of pure emotion." So like when I'm saying this is a vibes movie, it was intended as such. It's not just like an accident that the movie doesn't make sense. They didn't really care if it made sense. It was about a weird emotional state it kind of gets you in. It's following a lot of very weird dream logic. Although, as much as people say the plot is incoherent, it kind of is. But like, having seen the movie 4 times now, I can say there is a plot.
After your 4th viewing, you can now, without any shadow of a doubt, tell me, yes, this movie has a plot.
So on my 3rd viewing, I was like, yeah, there's a plot. It doesn't completely make no sense. And then this 4th time, because I was taking very careful notes to keep track of what was happening, it's like, oh, yeah. All the pieces get set up. In fact, there's a lot of clever stuff I didn't realize until seeing it so many times, where it's like it sets up a thing and then that character does a thing later, like the eyeball getting shoved out of the eye from behind part, it happens in the room where we saw the nails on the wall earlier on. So it was setting up that was going to happen later. Like there's a lot of like coherence to it. It's really the 3rd act when it just goes off the rails. Kind of how like a lot of my favorite movies do too, because you could say the same thing about Videodrome, but everybody just recognizes, because it beats you over the head with the Marshall McLuhan stuff, everyone recognizes it's an art housey kind of movie and that the incoherence is part of the point. But with this movie, since it was coming out of Italian exploitation horror, like it took like kind of over time, people kind of reclaiming it and identifying that it was a movie that wasn't intended to make sense, Well,
I have another question for you, Josiah.
Sure.
Is this a haunted house movie?
Yes, but with a very vague, if you're very vague with that term. Yes.
Right. In the broadest possible interpretation sense of the word haunted house, of the genre of like the haunt.
Here's the counter question. Is Evil Dead a haunted house movie?
Yeah. Yes? Question mark?
I think this movie is the same genre as Evil Dead. And that's a hard movie to say what the exact form of horror it is also. So I want to call it hell breaking loose movies, where what it is something gets fucked with in a way in which it releases an otherworldly force, which is therefore a excuse for a feature length film full of nonsensical and strange things occurring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess that puts it in the point that I was kind of building to is that I think that this movie kind of deals with multiple subgenres of horror to the point where I think the best descriptor for this is that it is a weird fiction movie. I think that it is dealing with, in the way that it's talking about the beyond in this. They say hell, but it's more than likely purgatory. Fulci is a Catholic, so there is a lot of discussion and aesthetics that Catholic aesthetics that he's going to be using. But then there's also the purgatory is kind of depicted as being Catholic and also not Catholic. It's weird. It's very interesting. I'm like the way that it is talked about and depicted is it's riding on a tension where it is eldritch. It's non-Euclidean. It is something alien, but it's also something very familiar.
Yeah, and I mean, that actually comes out of the tension of the movie. So you have 3 people credited as screenwriters on this movie. You have Lucio Fulci, you have Giordano Sacchetti, and you have Giorgio Mariuzzo. These are going to have a lot of Italian names, and I'm going to mispronounce them, so I apologize ahead of time. But Sacchetti, ultimately wrote the story, and he was like, we're doing a Lovecraft story, a little more so. Like, he wanted the beyond to be, he describes like a hell full of dead souls and other world existing outside of Euclidean geometry. So that's very Lovecraft, right? As Fulci's like, no, I'm dealing with like my fear of purgatory.
Right, which is probably a thing that the movie is about. And I'm really trying to dig to find the thematic core for this, because a lot of this is just isn't this gross? And yes, it is gross, and I'm glad I saw it. But I do think there is something here.
It's just that it's the movie makes more emotional sense than it does like plot or theme. And which makes it kind of hard to talk about on a podcast, but we're going to do it anyway. But kind of, I mean, like, you know, people recognize that in Lynch. You know what I mean? David Lynch's stuff. That's also kind of the case there. So it is a mode of cinema. And for me, this movie is really important, and kind of Italian horror is important for me in general because it played a big role in me kind of like reimagining what I thought cinema was. Because I think we kind of inherit a sort of, like if you're just an American film goer, you inherit sort of a default realism as your approach to what you think good movies are. You hear this all the time when people criticize a movie. They'll say like, oh, that decision this character make wasn't realistic. You know what I mean? Like it's always this appeal to realism, which is of course like only one aspect of cinema as a medium. You know, like if you have, you know, kind of more a formalism on one side where it's about style and about vibes and about that. And then you have on the other end, this like more, you know, realism, you know, cinema is always about the push pull of those two things. And I think The Beyond was an important movie for me, alongside a lot of other Italian horror, because I watched it and I went, that was a great movie. And there was nothing realistic about it. I like it completely rewired what I think a good movie is. This was a preview for a Patreon only episode. So check out the show notes if you want to hear more.